Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I am your host, Tim TK, joined as always by Mr. Jose Fuentes.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Good. Had a good day, busy day.
Yeah, I've been running and busy as well, but that is the way life goes, it seems. So, tonight, pretty simple, just the two of us, and we're going to be talking about how we show combat in comics, how that different styles of combat or fighting translate to the art and the panel, as well as how you can tie that into how the character is written, how the art might work with the metaphor, or their style might work with their metaphor involved. But before we get into that, we of course have our usual icebreaker. So, Jose, what have you been reading, watching, playing, ingesting, otherwise?
I have been reading Delilah Dirk, which is
Yes.
a pretty awesome series of graphic novels. And I don't know, like I said, I found someone posted some artwork for it. I found it really cool looking, and so I kind of backtraced it to find out where it was from, and then it was over from there. I just started reading the books. The creator posts them on his website, and you can like read like through the first book of each one. And I'm just waiting on mine to come in now.
Nice.
Gotta support creatives, man. Like where we
Absolutely.
can, especially when it's great work. It's like I said, it's like Laura Croft meets Indiana Jones set in like 1912 or something like that. It's just the period is awesome.
That's dope. Well, anything else? Have you been watching anything new or playing anything new?
Uh, no, I've been trying to stay away from playing video games. Like, I'll go on and update a couple things here and there, but
Sure.
I'm trying to stay clear from it because I have pages to work on.
Yeah.
You know, so like I'm doing the inks for obsolete, and if I start getting focused in the game, then I'll lose track of everything I'm doing, and
Yeah.
pages don't get done. So I really got to discipline myself to just, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'll allot myself this much time, set a timer, work on it, and then come back to whatever I'm doing.
That's fair. I just got my the revised script for issue 1 of my new turned in, so I took the weekend to play a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, take a break before I get the revisions in.
Right.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of Elite Dangerous. I finally got myself a large class ship, so
Nice.
yeah, I'm doing that. But what's going to be dangerous, or what I spent a lot of hours playing yesterday, Halo Infinite released their multiplayer 3 weeks early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that looks awesome. I love Halo, but I'm afraid if I start playing now, I won't do anything else.
I know it's really dangerous. They released it free early, so if you yeah, everyone who gets into it is just gonna be sucked into it immediately. I've been loving it. It plays a lot like Halo 2 and Halo 3 did, but with
Nice.
the good parts that came on later on. So they keep the sprinting, they keep some of the cool features, but they dropped the class system. They got rid of the weird jetpacks. So
Nice. That's good.
yeah, it feels like just an updated Halo, and I've realized that I will need to limit my consumption of that. Otherwise, there will only ever be an issue 1 of the new volume.
Right.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of all the Halo games, like from the very first Halo, and just have played through all of them.
Yeah.
I wish my son would get into them the way I did, so I have someone to talk about it.
Right.
But I somehow managed to heavily get him involved in Assassin's Creed.
Okay.
And so he's yet again working his way through Bloodlines.
Wow.
Brotherhood. Sorry,
Brother.
Brotherhood.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, "You're playing that again?" He's like, "Yeah, but this time I'm playing it on my Xbox, not yours." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, that
Yes.
matters."
Yes.
You gotta
As a
evidently
whole
get
new
the
save
first
file.
install.
Yeah. And then, once the gets to the point where he's like, 75 out of like 100% achievements, it's like, well, I can maybe do like another playthrough and try to
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, "Geez, dude, I'm still playing through Odyssey. Like, I haven't even finished Odyssey,
Oh, Odyssey is
and
so good.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really liked Origins.
Hmm.
Odyssey, I like Odyssey, and I have Valhalla, and I played about 15 minutes of it just because I had to play
Oh,
it when
yeah.
I got it. And now it's just sitting there waiting for me, just mocking me.
I'm waiting for a Valhalla to like get on a Steam sale or something. So if it gets not marked down, this all
Right.
yeah, it's Christmas I might. But yeah, Odyssey was one of my favorite creeds in a while. Anything having to do with the ancient world, I am a sucker for.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so then there might be spoilers for said issue 1, volume 1 has been written. Mhm. Um, yeah, over the weekend I ended up reading posted on Instagram, but I got my weekly delivery and some polls in. So like my big read from the weekend was Guardians and X-Men Black Vortex, which was really fun. It was
That was an older one, right? Like,
it's an older one. It's like a couple years old at this point.
yeah.
Yeah. But I never got a chance to actually like read through all of it because at the time I was only collecting Cyclops, so I got some of the tie-ins, but
Okay.
not all of it. So now I got the full story involved, and
Isn't that the one with wasn't it like an obelisk or something like that they got or
yeah,
something like it enhanced their powers? I remember Gamora
yes,
ended up getting
yeah, it was something. It was like a weird piece of tech that the Celestials left
yeah.
behind. And if you looked into it, it amplified your powers to that of a celestial, but also it amplified your like personality flaws.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Hank McCoy gets it, he is, you know, uh, not only is he much smarter and stronger, but also he's much more arrogant. And he's like, "No, I can solve this. I can do it." And ends up creating a simulation of space time. Yeah. But no, it was good. It was one of that's remember a little bit of that old new X-Men. Because Andrea Sorrentino, I think, did the art on the old X-Men at that time. She also did some of Uncanny X, or yeah, was it Uncanny or was it just X-Men at that point? Because they dropped the Uncanny after a point, but I think it was Uncanny still. And the way she drew like Ronan the Accuser is one of my favorite looks for Ronan. But no, it was a fun time. Loved the personality work in there, having a young Cyclops and Bobby Drake paired with the older. At this point now, the Guardians are their seniors,
Right.
since these are the X-Men that have been pulled through time. So that was some fun personality play. Watching wise, not much watching. Yeah. The thing that I stay away from the most is usually TV. Because it can be easy just to binge watch something, but
Right.
yeah. Most games I play now are in some way like multiplayer inherent, so it's it's something you can do. Like I just you can set a timer, like you set your goal, like I'm just going to do 3 matches, complete 1 challenge, and then I'm out and back to working.
Right.
But if it's something where like
And stick to it. You
yeah,
have to stick to it.
there's a clear exit route that like you know when to pull the shoot. But
Right.
if I put on like Clone Wars or like The Expanse or something, I'm just going to like veg out.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I'll watch stuff like when I was in school, I cycled through was it Warehouse 13
Oh yeah.
and let's see, Warehouse the Librarians
Mm-hmm.
and Office,
Yep. Yep.
2 more. Leverage,
Okay.
and there's one more. I don't remember what it is. But like I would cycle through those because I knew what was going on, and as
Yeah.
long as I can hear it, I can like picture it in my head. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. You know what I mean? While I'm
Yeah,
working.
yeah, yeah.
But I did start watching some a couple of days ago. I forgot that I also have binged watched all of this show called Murdoch Mysteries.
Okay.
And that's set in like I don't even know what it is. Honestly, it's like Victorian Canada. You know what I mean? And
Okay. Yeah.
it's this police detective that uses modern science. You know what I mean to like
Sure.
and it's stuff like Tesla's coil and like things like that. Like the
Oh
invention
yeah.
of the car, and he's like things like that are coming to Canada. He's using all these like he created a
Hmm.
spectroscope, something like that. Using like beakers with fluids and like magnifying.
Oh yeah.
Like just the idea that like they're introducing more modern stuff, but like a kind of steampunk slash primitive version of it. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like stuff like that. I like.
That's yeah. I love stuff like that too. I kind of get a little that I don't really hit it on the nose, but I kind of get into something kind of like that in Wolf Hunter. Shameless plug for upcoming Silverline title, where uh, the whole reason why REF Captain Willard gets picked for this is because he's inherently good at forensic psychology, but that really hasn't been invented during World War II.
Right.
So, but
Nice.
yeah, so that's the whole thing is he's just, we get into like ticks and social cues and all this like stuff that like a forensic psychologist would use, but it's just something that is not a really developed skill set at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. I've seen some of the artwork from it, and I'm blown away. Like seriously.
I love it. It's gonna be so cool. Anyway, we could probably get into tonight's subject unless you remembered anything else new.
No, I think
All
I'm
right.
good.
Okay. So tonight we're talking about combat styles. So obviously, not every comic has to feature combat, and in fact, a lot of comics really don't need to. If you were doing something like the Part Timers and had a gunfight break out in the middle of McDonald's, it's not it's going to feel very out of place. But for stories that do, I mean, obviously a lot of our titles are action based. Also Bear, one of ours, also does not necessarily need a combat style. But a lot of our comics are action based or adventure, and in that case, you usually feature some form of combat or action. And comics are known for popularizing, the superpower, but really any type of combat style gets featured at some point in a comic. Of course, gunplay got really popular in the 80s and 90s. Swordplay has also played a big part in a lot of comics, as well as the occasional bow work. Probably the two biggest bow characters are featured by the big two, Green Arrow and the Hawkeyes. But I'm just actually I did read the first issue of something today. Which is a Comixology original by Jeff Lemire and art by Jock. His name is just Jock, or their name. I don't know. But it's called Snow Angels, and that also features essentially family of hunters. So they do a lot of bow work as well. Yeah, it's hunters in like a post-apocalyptic ice channel, as far as I can tell. Like the world is ice, and they live in this channel that's been carved into it. It was carved out to them by the Colden ones for them to live as a society. It's a father and his two daughters, and their society's upset when a creature known as the Snowman comes down and butchers the village while the family is out hunting for one of the daughter's 12th birthday. So it's really different. I'm liking it, but yeah. Bow work. The old say that it's an indie comic that features a dude with a bow. Hey Tommy, welcome to Tuesday. Yeah.
I want to throw an honorable mention
Yes.
for bow work to Shaft from Image Comics.
Oh yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of different styles of combat get used in comics. Brawling, of course, fist fighting, also huge. But each one of those types of combat or styles of violence translates to art a different way. You'd see it on the panel demonstrated differently, and you will get different types of action shots essentially. Sometimes you might reuse the same angle. If anyone remembers reading mid 2000s Batman, and every page there's at some point where there's Batman punching through a guy.
Yep.
Yep. Their combat styles. Do you have any particular favorites? Things you like, don't like about either one of them, or?
So I feel that Batman is always drawn doing the same thing. You always get the dynamic block.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The big kick. And I have a friend that wrote a story, and it's just a little short story comic, and he personally practices I believe it's an Indonesian style of martial arts.
Yeah.
And it deals with like bow staffs and eskrima sticks. And,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And he wrote it where the female protagonist was defending. I think she was defending her village and whatnot, and using the different. And he wanted to make sure that when he wrote it out, he wrote it out to make sure that the moves were correct. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
He could I don't know, pay tribute to the actual martial arts that he was doing, which I think is really cool. But I think it's important, when you're using specific styles, it's important to really know what you're talking about, or maybe not so much be fluent in it yourself, but at least do your research.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're oh, I want this person to do I don't know, Muay Thai or something like that. Do your research in the different moves and stuff. That, you know what I mean? Because it helps and it makes sense, and people are gonna know. You'll get most people that are oh yeah, that's awesome, super sweet kick and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, then you'll get people that actually know, yo, dude, that's wrong.
That's not right. Yeah. I haven't maybe potential future spoilers, but I've been wanting to write a cape style character that practices Muay Thai, because it's popular outside of Thailand. It's really popular in the UK and here in the United States as well. I train it, although I'm more. Last time I did a proper Muay Thai round, I nearly broke my foot because I was used to doing Dutch style, just heel strikes. But but there's if you think Muay Thai in pop culture, you probably think Sagat from Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not really an actual I mean, there probably is at some point a superhero that's used Muay Thai, but not one that's vastly popularized. So I've been wanting to do something because they'd be really, if you can do it right, it's a really dynamic and really cool looking martial art, and also it is vastly devastating. So,
right. Watch if you haven't seen it already. Watch the movie Ombak?
Yeah.
Tony Jaa in it, and that dude's pretty cool and very. I don't know. I don't know the style as well as some people do, but I feel it's pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean, in some of the movies, some of the stances he does. You know what I mean. It's very. I think it feeds to a comic book creators and comic book artists and whatnot. I think it's something that would really come off really well.
Yes.
On the page. You know what I mean? I know, was it Jet Li's The One? It was the same fighting style. The different versions of him, it was the same fighting style, but different. Was it different belief structures in it or something like that? One was constantly moving forward, and the other one was fluid movement and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
I feel also something we might want to do an honorable mention while we're kind of getting into the subject, but I wrote a blog post about it today, I wrote it last night, but I posted today. But I wrote a blog post today about a show that's now on the Silverline YouTube channel called The Comics Fu Show. Hosted by Chris Fujita. Yeah, and they had a really special episode which they recorded with Jose Figueroa. And they did it in honor of Hispanic and Latino History Month, talking about the importance that kung fu played in Harlem growing up, and all this stuff how the cultures of Harlem hip hop and kung fu all kind of commingled in the 80s, and how that also works in
Right.
comics. Yeah. And so talking about, all these different martial arts, they went into a lot of depth with something like Tai Chi and Wushu, and yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, I think also what kind of gets in the way of doing some characters like Batman a little boring is people get caught up in traditional Western boxing, which does have trained that before going into kickboxing. Like you literally have moves 1 through 6, and then the rest of it is defensive footwork. And in this, you're going to do a lot of weird panels focusing on foot change-ups, which I'm sure some artists could probably do rather well, but it's hard to imagine that being as compelling. But to me, someone like Batman and a lot of really effective brawlers, either in media or just historically, have just been really unconventional fighters. There you go. Yeah, the dirty street fight moves. But yeah, you have to think unconventionally. If you've ever seen like captured footage of Bronson fighting before he got put in prison, but James Tynion, his run on Batman, on the Joker War, there is a fantastic panel where that it's something that I haven't really seen anyone do before. Where Batman is grappling one guy under one arm, punching another dude's face in while also delivering a sidekick. Hey, what's up, Patrick Lugo? Yes. We mentioned the Comics Fu Show, co-hosted by Patrick Lugo and Curtis Fujita. Yeah, and this most recent episode was something that was very, very cool to me as someone who practices kickboxing, grew up on 90s comics and anti-heroes, and listens to quite a bit of hip-hop, even though I am a traditionally metalhead, but my appreciation for the RZA, Gift of Gab,
Right.
yeah. Speaking of comics, hip hop crossovers, MF Doom, but yeah, you're more than welcome, Patrick Lugo. Thanks for stopping by. Feel free to hang out if you got time to kill. If not, absolutely appreciate you boosting the algorithm.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely feel like if you're doing someone like a brawler, you can draw on traditional boxing, but you have to do things that are to make it really sell in a like media standpoint. And you have to make it unconventional. Have the things where he's doing like 5 things at once, or
Right.
Doing the Jean-Claude Van Damme split uppercut. Like I don't
like if I ever do a Jean-Claude Van Damme comic book, he's gonna do that for everything.
Yes. Every challenge, it's a split uppercut. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every issue ends with a split uppercut.
Yes. Yeah. But personally, I'm a fan of obviously, 90s anti-hero comics. That's where like gunplay that got Popeyes in the 80s and mixed with superpowers, and you got things like Venom with the symbiote guns.
Right.
Yeah. Cable, of course, was super dope. I think that's when they started doing teched out Punisher, where he started weaponsmithing his stuff.
Yeah, they did. Also, was it they did Spirit.
Oh yeah.
Spirit Pleasure, where he came back from the dead or whatever. He had like ghost guns.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
that was weird. That was
It's weird.
like, I read that. I was just like, I don't know if I like this or not. I mean,
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I might be in the minority, but I'm a sucker for the weirder things can get, the more I'm into it. So Spawn going from pulling like a demonic like desert eagle out of his arm, and then it turns into a giant battle axe. I'm here for it.
have you read the comic book? Was it Barbaric? Right. It
Sounds familiar.
It has this barbarian guy, and these witches cursed him he has to help people. If they ask him for help, he has to help them.
Okay.
And So like he's like, crap, I have to help these. Like, oh, they've asked me, now I have to go do this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he has this like axe. It's like this gnarly looking axe with like a skull face on it that talks to him. Is like, and every time he hacks somebody with it, like the axe drinks the blood. Like at
Oh.
one point, he's like destroying all these people. The axe, you just see like these drawn bubbles where the axe is like getting drunk off the blood.
That's awesome.
Like I started reading because the art was I love the art on it.
Yeah.
It reminded me of was it the Wu-Tang comic book like
Okay. Yeah.
back in
Yeah.
the early 2000s, like the Nine Rings of the Wu-Tang,
Yes.
and it reminded me of the art from that, and I was just like, and then I started reading it, I was like, that axe was cracking me up.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's the book I feel you have to pick up. It's hilarious.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of things like that, Berserk through Boom just came out. The book co-written by Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, I
So
haven't read it yet.
I have not read it yet. So I'm getting my order placed this week. This Friday is gonna be my next big pickup day. So it's gonna be Berserk, as well as actually getting the most recent edition of the Champions tabletop role playing game.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's a shout out to anyone who played old superhero based role playing games.
Yeah, I played. I think I played that once. I know I played. Was it Mutants and Masterminds?
Yes, yeah,
That was interesting.
yeah,
So that was like you have to spend points to build your stuff and whatnot. It's pretty cool.
yeah.
But yeah, I think I have the blank for Berserk ordered. Like
Nice.
it's one of the ones like every so often I'll go like I'm gonna order that blank and that blank and that blank. And I'm not gonna tell my wife order in.
Yep. So it shows me door. Oh, that's weird.
Like right. If you watch this, babe, I love you.
Yes. That's for all as I had a thing where I had to recently where I had to replace Love Champions that and V&V. Yep. And maybe we'll have to get like I mean, Scott and I already talked about this. There's quite a few people in the Silverline community that play tabletop role playing games. And Roll and I have mentioned at some point, that it would be interesting to have everyone roll up a character from one of the books they worked on and do like a role playing game show.
That'd be cool.
Right. But yeah, recently I had a thing where I had to replace like all the paint equipment in my house. So there's just like, all right, now here's this set of like stippling brushes. All right, here's this roller in. Here are these knives in. I was like, don't worry about anything. This is fine. Oh, more stuff. That's weird. Yeah, but oh man.
Oh, my mention about the barbaric.
Yeah.
Like that big gnarly axe, right? And we had mentioned like sword play. And,
Yes.
I feel that like in regard to like was it the personality of the characters we mentioned, right? The fact that the axe is big and gnarly plays to just I don't know, like the level of the character's brutality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it seems to me a little off the wall, but like it really does. Like if you get like what's his name, Ian Nottingham, I think, from Darkness.
Okay.
And like, he had this really nice sleek katana. You know what I mean? He's supposed to be like very skilled, like finesse and you know what I mean, like precision.
Yeah.
So I think that weapons, even your fighting style, like if you was it Wildcat from Justice Society was a boxer. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I mean, it can be finesse as well, but like I feel that most people, at least me anyway, when they figure boxing, it's like pummel as hard as you can. You know what I mean? And I think that plays into also like his costume design for whatever reason it was. Like I don't remember off the top of my head, but it all plays to like rough and brutal and what you know what I mean in that regard.
Yeah, that's the thing is the writing the my Muay Thai hero would be Silverline is it's a PG-13 label, so we keep things around here. But I'd almost want us to do something like a Marvel Max label where it's like this. If you're doing something that's like 17 plus, this is it. Blackline or something, but
right.
Yeah, but because Muay Thai is a fighting style, it is it follows that same principle of boxing where it's the sweet science. It's your primary thought is going to be the counterattack. You're always thinking about how to counterplay.
Right.
But one of the first things that's in your thought in a Muay Thai match, if you're a Nok Muay, is how am I going to break his ribs? Because a good round kick, like a beginner's round kick, has the power to break someone's ribs because you're delivering one of the most resilient, like toughest parts of your body, the densest part, the shin, into one of the more fleshy, soft parts of someone's body, like right under the armpit or right in the gut. And it doesn't require a whole lot of actual like effort behind it. It's all just physics. You're just rotating your hips and your body drags your shin there. So you have to be very present of the fact that like I'm going to try and break someone's ribs right now. So having that character who is, something like a contained beast where like they can be kind of present and thinking, and then when the gloves come off, they're like, all right, I'm going to try and shove your rib through your lung right now, and you're not going to stop me. Yeah.
Like that moment where you see red and just go off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the two of my favorite characters. Obviously, I'm a huge X-Men nerd. As seen by the growing collection of X-Men hardbacks that I'm getting over here. But the Cyclops and Wolverine, they're both people where their power is not present at first visual glance. I was thinking about Cyclops earlier, but Scott Summers is a very emotional person, as demonstrated by the fact that he has ruined every marriage that he's been a part of. And then during the Schism event, he chose to go hardline, but there are things he caused him to unleash that. But before that, he is trying to be the calm, cool, collected leader, and so his power of containing the kinetic blast at all times, it's always bottled in until he chooses to unleash it.
Right.
And so that for being this character who's always like, all right, keeping all of his emotions bottled in until it destroys something. Like a marriage, or yeah.
Oh, poor Scott.
Poor Scott. Yeah. Same with Wolverine. He's his mutation is the healing factor, but the added bonus is the fact that being able to shoot his bones out of his wrists and then having adamantium bonded to those. Right. But he is, as a character, he is someone who's been through the grinder multiple times, and even though he does try to put on this rough and tumble like persona, he does his best to keep the kids away from that and try and keep them sheltered and be the tough wall that they need to keep the bad stuff away from them. And that was, even going back to Schism, like we talked about Scott going hardline, the whole thing was Logan said the kids don't need to be part of some of the terrible stuff happening in the world right now. They can just let them focus on being kids and let us deal with that. And Scott's like, no, they need to be prepared for the world. And for fans, obviously it's not too much counselor. Yes, yeah. That'd be fantastic. I don't know. I almost wanted that to happen on at some point in Krakoa, just and have someone like a Dr. Nemesis, or not Dr. Nemesis, Dr. Sinister, Mr. Sinister. I'm a doctor, Scott. Don't worry about it.
You'll get there.
I'm going to give you some advice as a doctor. Just something, the most horrible advice, but from someone who's legally married himself. But and he unleashes it out at some point, but yes, yeah. That was one of my favorite things about Tynion's run of Batman was the fact that Harley Quinn, this is, post Emancipation Harley Quinn, where she is, fully back in control of her mental faculties, but she just likes the clown aesthetic and is like, it makes me really effective in combat, so I'm going to keep that. Right. Years of learning how to fight with a giant hammer. It's a very unique skill set, which I imagine does not translate well to many other forms of fighting. But she shrinks Bruce Wayne. where where Bruce Wayne has put on Joker and Punchline's laughing gas, and Harley gives him a medication and tries to talk him down.
That's amazing.
I
How
know.
have I not read that yet?
That's good.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, it's speaking of unique fighting styles, Harley Quinn, giant mallets and guns out of nowhere. Same with the Joker, who will just kind of do weird contortionism with a revolver and throwing knives or pies. Right. Harley Quinn with the giant mallet and her rocket launcher. That's very clearly where the fighting styles were written, I think, to reflect the personality types of the character.
In regard to her being like kind of all over the place,
kind of larger than life.
Yeah, I see that.
Definitely. Very much like everything is always big and expressive with her, and the Joker he's always doing something weird, but it's never quite what you expect. And I think that's the deal with has to portray a lot in the way that he will like bend himself, or the way that he holds himself when he's doing stuff, or having the revolver that will shoot a flag out just as Bane in one chamber, and the next is an actual bullet.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the way he was portrayed. I think it was Alex Ross that did the artwork for it, and but it was one where like the super villains were like building. I don't remember what they were building. They were doing something like pulling all the super villains together. Was that wasn't Kingdom Come? It was something else. Justice? I don't remember. But anyway, Joker's portrayal in it was just he wasn't recruited like the other villains, like Captain Cold and Heatwave and Cheetah and stuff like that. He was completely left out, so he decided just to sabotage the whole joint, walking around with a straw hat and everything else.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought that was great. I know he didn't really do any fighting in it, but just like, I don't know, with the Joker, it's more than just like physical fighting; it's psychological fighting on people as well.
Right, yeah. And I think it's kind of talking about craft and what we do. When I was writing Wolf Hunter, a lot of that was mostly psychological fighting, and so that had to be demonstrated more through like the visuals and like the weird and the close-up angles. But there are modes of gunplay as well as brawling, and those are always kind of served as like the last snapshots of what's happening. We do have a big brawl chasing, which I think is really fun, but it's all but I do it in the same way where it's, instead of having these big, splashy splash pages of, people doing big moves, it's a lot of tight panels where it's people looking at each other and noticing different things and acting on that. And then the last panel of the page is them pulling the trigger, doing the thing, and then the next page is the resolve, and the other character then analyzing the situation and then doing their counter move. And so instead of doing, a typical cape style comic where you have like these big double splashes or these big wide panels, it's a lot of smaller panels trying to pull out the details in the way that the characters are seeing the details.
That's cool.
Yeah. So what's a personal favorite fighting style you like? What characters' favorite moves? Jose, why don't you answer that one first?
I feel personally like dynamically, like what I like to watch and like hear about and hear the explanations for is honestly like was it Wushu?
Oh yeah,
I think the principle behind that is pretty awesome. And I don't know, there's a lot of stuff to it, and I just thought like it's pretty neat. I don't know, it's pretty neat. I just think.
Yeah.
So like when I see it done in movies and stuff like that, I just I definitely pay attention to it. I mean, I don't try to incorporate it in any of my art, but like I'm definitely, you know what I mean? I can definitely appreciate it.
Definitely. For me, personal favorite style fighting. Personally, I for me personally, the way I like to fight is kickboxing, because that's what I trained. I wouldn't try and do something else. I feel like I get my butt handed to me. But seeing like other characters do that, I mean, honestly, like I'm a huge fan of Gun Fu. Kind of like what was in Equilibrium, and again in John Wick. Yeah, that did just small.
Gun kata.
Yeah, gun kata. Yeah, just small arms and just a lot of I kind of play with in that. So when that plays into characters like Agent Venom a little bit, I don't really see that too many in comics because it is hard to portray. Just kind of grab, snap, return. It's
Right.
in series of panels. It gets more play in movies, but there was trying to remember. There was one that came out a while ago. I want to say it was an Image, maybe. It might have actually been a Bloodshot series where it just featured a lot of snappy pistol play. I have to get back to that one.
Yeah, like I mean, if you could pull that off in a comic book, you know what I mean, like without there being like 100 panels in one page,
Right?
like you can actually pull that off like dynamically. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
I know I use dynamic a lot, but like dynamically, it's
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because then you follow through it and just follow
yeah.
the movements. You realize that, you know what I mean.
It'd be
There's a
amazing.
lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah. I think also we will probably say like dynamic a lot during this conversation, because when you're thinking about I mean, if you're actually in a fight situation, you want to be a dynamic. You want to be moving and hitting from different angles, because that makes it harder to predict you. And if you're then also doing choreography, you want to be dynamic, because that is conveying motion. And you want I mean, the comic itself is designed to convey motion from the top panel to the bottom. And then also a fight is the physical motion of one person fighting another and trying to win or winning. And then also, like kind of what we mentioned also a little bit in some of these, the metaphorical, where one character's power represents one part of the personality versus one person's style represents a weakness of their personality. So you show like the metaphor of like, all right, this person is learning their lesson and is beating their weakness, and it's the character motion also showed. So if you do a good fight scene, you get like 3 levels of dynamics that move throughout the page.
Right.
I love staff stick fighting characters like Tim Drake, Donatello, Dick Grayson, love them. Also, Ultraman. Ultraman does use also some kickboxing in addition to his wrestling too. Yeah. And Daredevil, yep.
Yeah, I know Dick Grayson uses Eskrima sticks too. Those are the two like.
Yes. Yeah.
And
yeah. And Red Hood will go. It might have been a Red Hood that had the snappy gun play, because Red Hood uses pistols and sticks.
Yeah.
I was thinking it might be as the Red Hood and Arsenal when they did that together. I think that was it, where it'd go
Outlaws, Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, where it'd go from snappy pistol play with Red Hood and then go to Arsenal pulling off some insane trick shot.
Right.
Yeah. Also, the aesthetics they kept like the first couple volumes with Red Hood and Arsenal wearing trucker hats. I was just super into that as a West Coastie. Trucker hats are big over here, so I was very much into that.
Oh, that's amazing!
Yeah.
That's the best hat ever.
Yeah. But I think that's what I was thinking of.
Red was it? Arsenal. Arsenal wore the trucker hat almost the entire.
Yeah.
Was it first like storyline and a half? Like
yes.
You wore a trucker hat with the whole thing,
which I was super into. Yeah, obviously. So I've been kind of talking ad hominem because I am a writer, and writers love to hear our own voices about writing comic scenes and how I try to like inject metaphor into them. But as an artist, when you're drawing or inking a combat scene or someone's particular fighting style, what are some of the thoughts that you have in there? What are you thinking about when you're approaching that scene?
Well, depending on like the fighting move that's happening for me anyway, depending on the fighting move that's happening, be it a punch or whatever. I mean, you have to like know the direction it's going. I know that sounds really weird, but like I'll sit here and if I'm inking something in and there's a punch, I'm actually gonna like try and emulate what he's
Right.
doing, so I know what direction. If I'm gonna do speed lines on it, you know what I mean? Like zap lines through it to like show that motion. You want to be able to show the motion, or if I'm gonna do like a solid line for the fist, or like break it up and feather the lines instead, so that it shows that the someone's coming in with speed, or when they hit. I mean, I personally like a lot of, if I can make it happen, like definitely spatter. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
Uh, or
absolutely.
even if there's not blood, just like I feel that the the messiness of it, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like gives to like show like how hard that
yeah.
person is hitting,
I forgot
Like,
what it was.
holy cow, you
it was.
just
It
broke
was.
something.
Yeah, it's for sure. It was an older title. Might have been. This might have been again Ray or Bloodshot, but there was a sequence where they had like empty space off the panel, and someone got rocked with like a haymaker, and the base you saw like the splatter come over and like hit like it was like on the camera on like the camera
Nice.
lens. Yeah,
That's cool. But yeah, like knowing the direction of like if someone's gonna spin kick somebody or something, knowing the direction that that's going, like a lot of that plays into like the effects that you're giving it, like not necessarily like filters and stuff like that, but like what you're doing. Like I said, the spatter, like that, you can do directional spatter. And I personally like. I know I ink digitally for obsolete, but like my favorite is actually the ink traditionally,
okay.
and being able to like grab my brushes and like my pencils and just tap tap. You know what I mean? To get that effect in a particular
Yeah.
direction. We had to do a page for school where it was like I did a panel with a top view looking down at and I don't even remember what the name of the bad guy was, but he like had a skull and a cape and everything. He's a bad Batman bad guy, and I taped everything off, and I just like from low at the table, and I just tapped it so the spatter had a direction, and you know what I mean. It like showed to me, it flowed and allowed the to show that there was movement in that particular panel. And so like I enjoy doing that stuff. I never really thought I'd enjoy getting like ink and stuff on my hands. And one of my teachers told us like if you don't have ink all over your hands, you've not inked correctly. And so like every time I do something like that, I'm like, yep,
Yep. Good day of work.
that's right. Like I'm not above sliding my hand across the paper for for more effect and stuff. So
Yeah.
like that plays into it. Like like I said, if it's something like just like quick jabs and stuff like that, you're not going to give it the same movement, same motion that you would give. You know what I mean? Like someone bicycle kicking it across the screen.
Yes. Yes.
So like
Yeah.
I try to keep that in mind when I either when I ink or when I pencil something in for myself and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love also just like when an artist does do that to incorporate a lot of motion in the beyond well, just the action on the page, but actually going like creating like their own effects in either the splatter or the lines. Um because also you get moments where there's no motion showed in between that it can be really impactful to go back into it. Kind of same thing like how do you make music feel big again after you have the spell? You pull it back and then you hit it again really
Right.
hard. Yeah, so I mean, actually, is my favorite one of X Force, the one drawn by Rocky Kim. They're fighting a mutant in like the first issue with giant robot arms, essentially, or mutant arms, something arms. And there's a moment where he's punching into a dude, and there's a moment where it just shows the guy like getting crushed into something, and it almost looks like everything is resting in place. It's a punch, but it looks like everything's resting in place where the fist is like on his face in the ground, and then the next panel it shows all the motion as it punches him through whatever he's punching through.
Yeah.
So it's that moment of like action, 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 still moment where essentially it's the slow mo scene of seeing this giant arm impact someone's face, and then again fast speed shooting them out the other end.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that is a fun dynamic, like
Yeah.
tool use. Like it's almost like was it like Kung Fu Hustle when
Yeah.
the master shot himself with the
Yeah.
you see the bullet just go real slow and that it's the
Yeah.
same effect. And
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah.
I said, if you can make that happen and give the reader the sense that's what's happening, then you've succeeded.
Yeah.
That's a win.
And it's a lot of like, a smart use of like motion lines and when to have like the splatter effects on or when to pull them off. And
Right.
absolutely, yeah. Um, uh, personally, like writing it, I like I like writing psychological warfare because it makes me feel smart as a writer. Always writing someone smarter than I am. But actually, I love writing. You know, and the new volume that is a story unrelated to Wolf Hunter has a lot of elemental based superpower stuff. And writing, being being able to like direct the mental movie of these larger than life things of this guy chucking a spear made of solar energy, or essentially these future spoilers, god level fights. But I'm also sure that for artists that can be kind of annoying when you're like, yeah, just draw something on the scale of gods going at it. Do you have a personal preference on drawing fighting styles, or is it kind of everything is a mountain to conquer, or how do you feel about different fighting
I
styles?
mean, it's always a mountain to conquer, right?
Yeah,
Like no matter how you do it. I personally think that the more descriptive or at least communication you get with the writer,
yeah,
that's gonna like allow for making the panels easier, making the fighting sequence, go a little better. It's like, oh, my idea was this, and like, I had a thought of this, and then the artist would be like, okay, well, yeah, let me rough that out, and go
yeah,
back and forth. I think, like I said, communication is awesome, but like in regards to like, I actually like. I never would have agreed to this or not agreed, but admitted this before. But I actually like the like the big movements where like you have the zap lines and the speed lines going
oh
by.
yeah,
And I never would have done that or agreed with that before. I'd been like, no,
hmm,
no. But like it has its purpose and it works well. Like it's been proven to work well. I
yeah,
mean, as long as you're not doing like, okay, well, this person's throwing an ice lance or something, ice spear, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna draw it exactly how everyone else does it. You want to like tweak it up and make it so that it's unique to the story, even like exceed the expectations of the writer with the work that you're doing. You know what I mean? So like if he says, "Oh yeah, make it an ice spear," maybe not go like ginormous, but like if you can like make it look like it's definitely unique to your story,
right,
the story that you guys are creating, then really that's what I really like. You know what I mean? Like no particular drawing a particular writing style or writing or anything like that. I like the communication to make it look unique. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think you know everyone wants their comic to feel unique in some way because you want to be like, this is why you buy our book over
Right.
this, or even, well, I mean, um, not even that, but we like not even just like doing things better, but make it so the people who already buy something similar want to also buy your book because you're in the same vein, but you're different enough that they're not getting that same experience elsewhere.
Right.
Um,
Like, oh, I seen the exact same fight sequence in this other book. I was like, oh, well, I didn't mean to do the same general thing. You definitely want
yeah,
to spice it up.
absolutely, yeah. And my brain is blanking. It's about time for our break. So we're just gonna jump to a real quick ad cut while I try to get my brain back.
Well placed.
Yes. So we don't actually have a video again this week, but we are getting ready to launch another Kickstarter. We announced that I believe it's White Devil number 2 is going to be on Kickstarter here soon. But in the meantime, what you guys can do still is go to our website or Indiegogo, and you can still get the Christmas special in demand. And of course, we do also have our Zazzle merch store where you can buy, t-shirts, coffee mugs. We still have face masks if you're still in a county that's requiring those, or if you just want to be fashionable in your facial area, if you feel like you've picked up a new trend and want to keep it going. Yeah. Absolutely do that. And yeah. So we've been talking about combat styles, how they translate to the page, as well as how they work with the writing style. And obviously, as a writer, the first thing I'm thinking about, even before I get to essentially depicting what the fight is going to look like, writing out the panel descriptions for the artist I'm working with, is obviously I have to know how it ends and try to figure out if I'm going to like telegraph that, or if I'm going to have it be like a twist ending, or if it's going to be like an inversion at some point where the classic comic book inversion, the villain wins for 2.5 pages. The hero realizes either they had a secret weapon up their sleeve, or they learn something, and then the last they come out on top. And they kind of go to the choreographing of the fight itself. And I'll think about that before I get to writing the panel description. So in my beat sheet, that's the point where I make those decisions where, I might treat it like different scenes, or within the same scene, I'll create like 3 different lines about the setup, the turn, and the punchline of the fight, essentially. So as an artist, if you're reading through a script, is that something you're also trying to take into account when you're detailing the panels, or are you kind of approaching like, this is what this panel says, this is what this panel is going to look like? Where do you kind of, unless the writer has explicitly communicated that this is what he's trying to do, or they're trying to do?
Well, I feel that let's see how to answer that. So the writer, if you give me a script and whatnot, and I'll go through it first. Obviously, as an artist, you should go through the script before you even lay pencil to paper, because you have to if the writer, some writers don't visualize the panel work, or they're pacing.
Yeah,
what I'm getting to. So if you're going to draw a fight scene, you have to pace it. I mean, if it's going to be a 3-page fight scene, you know what I mean? Like you said, 2 or 3 pages, the bad guy's winning. But like, if you're going to draw 3 pages, know your pacing. Know that, at the end of this page, you know what I mean? You want it to be a cliffhanger to turn to the next page to watch the bad guy win again.
Yeah.
And then, cliffhang again to like you want to make sure that if you know the amount of panels you're going to put in, then make sure that you pace it. You know what I mean? Pacing. I mean, that's one thing I would go through. You know what I mean? Is to make sure that the pacing is right. I may not always get it right the first time, but then like I said, you send it back and go over it together, communicate it with the writers. Like, what do you think about this? Like, does that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of the things I taught my kids, you know what I mean? Because my oldest daughter was like in the poetry and stuff. It was just like literally the first thing I thought was like iambic pentameter. Like, you know what I mean? Know your rhythm that you're doing. So like when you're doing a fight scene, it's like, stand off looking at each other, and then and then punch, and then dodge and dip and weave, dodge, and you know what I mean? You want to be able to like pace that so that it flows across the page. And as long as the writer's cool with it, I've actually had somebody not be happy with what I did. but I did what you wrote down. Like, I tried my best to work. No, I don't like that. I'm like, okay.
All right.
Like, well, I'll do the best I can.
Yeah. I feel bad with some of the lack of feedback I give it sometimes. Where I'm like, yes, that is great. Just do that, more of that, whatever it is. I try to be like specific where I say what exactly I like about that. So maybe I give like the artist or colorist a little more focus. Like, okay, hone in on this detail for the rest of the.
Right.
Yeah, but no, absolutely. That feedback is for pacing is absolutely critical. Working on the Christmas special with fellow Tuesday person. Uh, it's maybe that's our name. We have the Wednesday whammers, the Sunday, the Silver Sundayers, or whatever they're called. Maybe we'll just be the Tuesday people.
Tuesday people.
Yeah, but
Like mole people. That's
exactly. We're the lizard people, Silverline.
That's right.
Yeah, but fellow Tuesday person, Quentin. We're going Christmas special with him. He, there's not a whole. There is action in it, but it's war movie action. It's bombing sequence, psychology,
Right.
standoff. But going into that last bit of the last confrontation, he came out. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to change the panel layouts on these 2 pages, and we're going to change the panel numbers, just because this is what you put over here is a much better cliffhanger if you put it here." And then this also allows this to flow more evenly into this big thing on the next page. And, because he's the person that he's thinking about the pacing in the art itself, whereas I'm just thinking about the plot beats for the most part. I try to be conscious of it and run right to the page. But as an art, if you're a writer who's not an artist, you're brain functionality of someone who's thinking in terms of that visual images right away. And so getting that back and seeing how well that the collaboration of going from my beats to his knowledge of page work it is a vast improvement on if he had not given me that feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I don't like doing the inks for obsolete. I know Aaron, all the pages were done for it and whatnot. Like I didn't really have to ask about a lot of stuff, just like some technique stuff. I was like, hey, what do you think about this? You know what I mean? If you don't like it, I can get rid of it. But like I'm just trying to change things up a little bit. And like the one thing so far I've asked him, like he absolutely loved it. So like I added it in. But like it's just like not so much new stuff, like new techniques that I have, but like just I think that if I like put a gradient on this person, you know what I mean, it's gonna separate them from the other people. Not that the art doesn't separate it, but like you definitely want to make sure that there's a contrast between what I mean, one group of people and the other people. So like I mean, I enjoy it. Like I love inking. Like I can't even say that enough. I love inking. Like I said, traditionally I could sit there with it, just like hoist my desk up because I lay it flat to do the stream, but like hoisting my desk up and just sitting there with my pens and my crocos, like ink sitting on the table. Like didn't for me before I went to school, inking was just like putting black ink on everything.
Yeah.
And then in school, I was like, wait, we can put white ink over the black? I was like,
Yeah.
that makes it so much cooler. Like I can do more stuff with it. Like heck yeah. But like that, doing that also like it also feeds into like you said, like again, dynamic. We like dynamic. That's a good word for tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight, sponsored by Dynamic.
Yes.
But like even doing that, like you may have like your solid blacks or your spotted blacks and whatnot, and then you have like a lot of Batman stuff to me anyway, like back in like the 90s, like a lot of the Batman stuff was like it was a lot of fights, but it was like if you wanted to show Batman or somebody else like really going at it, you make a bunch of panels and you silhouette them fighting. You know what I mean? So like that's a lot of black, and then throw in spatters of like white here and there. You know what I mean? That's gonna create more intensity. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you really don't want to show like someone being punched and blood splattering everywhere. If you throw some white on there, like some white spatter or white, brush strokes across it, then it's gonna help with that movement as long as you know that you need to like not just have it just randomly go somewhere. You want to direct it. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
keep the eyes rolling.
Yeah. Oh, the all new X-Men and Uncanny Run with Andrew Sorrentino on that again. That whole team. And I feel bad for not also memorizing the names of the inker and the colorist and the studios that they're also associated with. But the whole team was did some really nutty stuff. Andrea Styles very loose lines, which I like dirty lines in a comic. There's definitely something to like the classic look of these hard like lines and everything. But if you can, like almost where the characters are almost kind of like blending in the background at times, where there's loose lines between things. If you're consistent with it, you can do some really cool stuff with it. And one thing they did in a lot of action sequences is they'd cut to moments of focus by doing a hardline box around that thing within the panel. So it's almost like a panel within a panel, and then they would fill that with red or some other color. So like in a fight sequence, what they might do when someone's getting punched or getting hit with a kinetic blast or something, they'd cut to their face getting hit, have that in a flash, like a flush red box, and then the splatter would be just straight black ink onto the red.
Nice.
Yeah. And the weird things you can do with that to really sell the impact of each thing, because there is something that happens in comics that is the same thing that they talk about in professional wrestling, which is generational downgrades. Where if you think about the 90s WCW, if you got with the diamond cutter, you're down for the count. You're getting pinned. Now, diamond cutter is barely like, it's considered a super move. Like some people may just do that in the middle of a fight as like a thing. They're not even setting up a finisher. And comics, there is a bit of one-upsmanship. It feels like at some points it calms down. Everyone's like, we're just going to introduce a bunch of street level characters if we're bringing people new. But sometimes they're like, okay, this is a deep cut for Marvel fans. We're introducing Hyperion. He is literally a Superman, was also an atomic reactor.
Right.
It's like you want someone who imagine someone who could punch Superman through the center of the earth. This is Hyperion. This is Marvel's answer to him. And
I felt the same way about what was his name? Genesis. It was like Scott Summer and
yes,
Havoc's brother.
Yeah. Vulcan, Scott, and
Vulcan,
yeah. And then Genesis was also Apocalypse's son, which they did something really nice where they actually brought him in as the underpowered character. We're like, okay, he's not going to come in as the grown-up son of Apocalypse. He's going to be his like dweeby teen son. Who gets picked up by the X-Men while he's like orphaned. Like this is like trying to like bring in a wildcat. We need to make sure we rehabilitate him so he's domesticated.
Right.
But you get these moments where you're bringing in someone that's compare that to Captain America. Like, what does Captain America do that Hyperion can't do? But
Shield.
Exactly. So you end up getting these moments where you have these really powerful moments with one character, but for someone who's been used for a while, you're not selling that impact as much. Captain might dink someone with a shield, but then it's going to be all the focus on Hyperion. But when you're doing something dynamic, like smart splatter use, action lines, or even the blocking of characters, if you're as a writer and an artist, I feel like you do benefit from watching kung fu movies or action movies and knowing like what good choreography looks like. Like, how does someone look when they take a big punch?
Right.
And putting that with it, you can then resell those hits from Captain America or Cyclops. Like, how many times has in like the late, not right now, late 90s, but like mid 2000s, late 90s, mid 2000s, has Cyclops I-beamed someone and they've not been phased. Right. But you get to a point where like Cyclops needs to I-beam someone and they need to go down. And you need to sell that visually so people who didn't just read the past years are like, okay, he just did the same thing, and why is it hitting this guy harder than it did, hit someone else? Like, well, you can have plot elements in there. Like, he looked into a mirror, he looked into a magic mirror and it did things to him. Or just really smart art use can, verisimilitude, the fictive public can help people I'm trying to remember the not pretentious way of saying it. But the thing of disbelief, but a suspension of disbelief. Yeah,
Yes,
I'm just like the fictive Bellman verisimilitude. Like, no one who watches the show probably also has an MFA in writing. But the idea of really strong visuals can again allow people to suspend disbelief and make that hit powerful again.
Well, I mean, you can only suspend disbelief for a little while, right? I mean, at some point, you're gonna be like, okay, no, no, like fool me once, maybe, but come on.
Right, but it's even if you are bringing like a plot element, you need to tie that in with a visual element in some way, because otherwise, like if someone does something and just gets a huge power up and it does nothing again, you're like, well, he's just doing the same thing, but people are acting really differently. Right. But then bringing in that visual element to tie it together is really important, I think.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like you say that, it makes me think of there was a X-Men issue where it was right. I think it was after Asgardian Wars, and like somebody came through and was like kick the crap out of all the X-Men, and then Wolverine was the only one that can get close. I think they were like getting close to the M Crown Crystal, and like then his healing factor got shut off. He's sitting there dying of all kinds of stuff, but like he's getting so close to like the crystal, and then finally like he gets killed, but a drop of blood floats in the air and lands on top of the crystal and respawns an entire new Wolverine.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that was crazy. That was interesting. But how many times can we do that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Just some things, like I said, you can only suspend this belief for a little while before.
I mean, also, I'm.
No, go ahead.
I say, like I said, I'm of the train where like the more insane you can make things, the more I'm into it. So when Wolverine got hit by like I forgot how many megatons of a nuclear bomb and got reduced to a singular atom, but regenerated out of that, I'm like, yes, absolutely, why not?
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine talked about that moment for Wolverine where like his blood like respawned a whole new one in him, and we're like, well, yeah, but Lobo does that all the time. He was basically like, here, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Like, watch this.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that guy, as long as there's a drop of blood left of him, he regenerates it. Like,
right.
So I mean, do something different, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, they all do the same thing, but like, if you can make yours more unique, I mean, Wolverine's got claws that makes me unique. Lobo's got a pretty sweet cosmic chopper.
Yeah. The space chopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but they're individual. Everyone can like say, like I've said it, so they're basically the same person. You know what I mean? Each universe, each comic book publisher has to have their Wolverine, has to have their Lobo. As long as you can like put a spin on it, and so this our Wolverine, you know what I mean, does this kind of fighting style as opposed to like anybody else. And, then you change it up a little bit and not just have him jumping in claws bare.
Right. Yeah, and that's also like another weird thing about why you want the characters to be unique. But I mean, the weird thing with comics, everyone agrees that comics are cool. You get into it because it's cool, and we all think the same kind of things are cool. So of course, the same ideas are going to be kind of regurgitated in weird ways, but you want to make it different. But you also like you don't want to think about it as you're making something that's better than this other publisher, unless you maybe an executive. But as a creator, most creators are in some way freelancers or contractors who bounce around from title to title, different companies. So you want everyone's comics to do kind of well, because that means you're going to have work somewhere in the future.
Right.
Yeah. And so there is this kind of this fun, friendly rivalry camaraderie where everyone wants everyone wants everyone else's books to do well, because it just means that comics in general are doing well if someone else is selling a lot of copies.
I mean, that's the goal, right? That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
again, that's the
yeah,
goal. Like
yes.
you don't just want your comic to do well; you want other people's comics to do well because all that just helps the industry as a whole.
Hmm.
I mean, DC's doing whatever DC's doing, Marvel's doing whatever Marvel's doing, but Silverline's doing their own thing.
Someone's
You know what
doing
I
their own
mean?
thing. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, and I do think it's really interesting how um we seem to have a lot of we have a lot of like martial arts and ninjutsu titles, as well as gunplay titles. We do have us a few like traditional capes, but they're you get you brawlers like Champion and Miss Fury. Uh, I am working on something which is going to be like uh, might be one of the first cosmic level events in the Silververse. Future spoilers.
right?
Yeah. And we also got a couple other science fiction things coming out as well. They're all, Trump's is really interesting for because that's not just combat style, but that's like full scale battles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. I got my copy from Thomas Hedgeland. So
Nice. Yeah.
like, I was like, I found out he had books. I was like, bro, you need to hook me up. Like, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll work it out. And so I got my copy from him, and I just going through. I was like, this is it's kind of intense. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
to it, and I was like, okay, hold on, I got to read this again. Like,
Yes.
oh, that's neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But yeah, I
no
think
spoilers to anybody, but pick it up. Like,
yeah,
find it, pick it up,
it's
order
it's
it.
it's dope. I think you can get it
Yeah,
on our Indie Planet shop front. So
nice.
yeah, you can get
Yeah,
yeah, get a direct order. But yeah, I that because that's almost like a whole other thing in comic styles beside itself. Because if you're thinking in the super, you do have like big team up moments in comics before. But usually it is just like you don't see full scale art. It's usually like hero and villain or hero and henchman or whatever.
right.
But to actually see like armies on the field and there's artillery firing and a lion charging, firing plasma guns. That's a different way of selling the dynamics of the scene. I
It's
feel like
pretty intense too. Like, I
yeah,
mean, not even just Trump's, but like grand battles in general. Like,
yeah,
if I read a story that has that in it, I'm gonna spend significant amount of time on those particular pages
yeah,
just to try and like find everything I can going on there. It's like going through a Where's Waldo book.
hmm,
I mean, I mean that like definitely. I mean that positively.
yeah, yeah,
I want to know because I look at a world, Where's Waldo, and I want to see all the little different details in it. And there doesn't have to be Easter eggs, but like, oh man, this guy's over here fighting. Oh, that dude took this guy out. Like, just like go following the whole like choreograph of the fight of the big
yeah,
battle. Like,
yeah,
that in of itself, like that's pretty daunting. I mean, in my eyes, you know what I mean?
absolutely,
To
yeah.
have to draw that out, like,
Yeah, for everyone on the art team, it's got to be like a huge responsibility where you get this. They either like this panel splash or double splash from the writer. Like, all right, we're going to, we're going to create an epic here.
right?
Yeah. But I think also, as a writer, you do also have responsibility with that scene because when you think about movies or stories that have involved big fight scenes, if they're done well, they're usually very emotionally charged.
Yep.
Like either everything's on the line, or and like it's the heroes last stand, or victory's just within grasp. Or even if you're doing like something like a tragedy where you're seeing like this was entirely avoidable, but people just made bad decision for bad decision, and then here we are watching a bunch of people die because of it. And I think that's also why those type of scenes lend themselves to bigger panels or like splashes or doubles, because you almost want to fill them in with captions or dialogue or some way to really tie in the emotional side of things from the narrative as well.
Right.
Yeah, and not
I
just
I think it's I like I like it when they're double splash pages, like especially big battles. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
get one on one side, one on the other. You know what I mean? And then like we've done it where like you paneled along the edge. You know what I mean? You followed the path, the panel along the edge, and then like I've seen it where the panels for like aspects of the big fight blown up, so
yeah,
you can see that. You know what I mean? I think that's cool because then that's kind of help like follow, like you're following, like you're almost like, you know what I mean? Following the battle across, and then doing that, you can direct it to like say the next page where like then you more like fine tune and hone into like the specific spot that you know or character that you want to focus on. I just because it's almost like a firework going off
yeah,
and then bringing it back together. You
exactly.
know,
Yes, yeah,
like I would imagine that that is the ideal or you know the plan. That's the goal to because you want that big wow factor for the big fight. You just want to be like, whoa, there's a lot going on, and then back to the story.
right. Yeah, it's always that moment of tension and release. If you're going through writing school, you always learn about tension or just applying screws to characters, and then having moments of release where all the tension has been built up and all decisions that people have made suddenly unwind, and whatever as a result of those actions is what happens
Right.
on the page. And if you're doing something like a Shakespearean tragedy like Macbeth, where we have all these people who are pulling against each other, and instead of having uh, letting greed and avarice and revenge kind of drive all three people together, rather than having more open communication, then you just see them all kind of like put the nails into this on each other until the moment where everyone has a knife at each other's neck and they all start swinging, and that creates the battle at the end there.
Right.
Or if it's something like the movie just came out, Dune, one of our favorites. But
Right.
the battle on the Battle of Arrakeen, after House Atreides takes, then you get more of it in the book, but in the movie I feel like they did a pretty good job of seeing everyone's like, in the movie you kind of start halfway in where everyone understands that the nails have already been applied and they're just like waiting for the inevitable as things get tighter and tighter for them. In the book you actually see everyone really start move places, especially Piotr, the name, but the computer man for House Harkonnen. He does a lot more in the books. But you see them all kind of set these things in place for a long time until you're ready for that moment of relieving the tension, and then it's this big ambush where House Harkonnen comes in and lays waste to Arrakeen.
Right. Well, they kind of I was gonna say they kind of downplayed that a little bit
Yeah,
in the movie, but they were. I mean, I think they were trying to put a lot into the
yeah,
movie, right? But like even the fight scene, like the was it the training scene that
yeah,
that was it Paul? Yeah.
yeah. Paul and Gurney.
Had
Yeah,
yeah Paul Gurney. Yeah. Um, even that like that was definitely I don't know I liked it. That was a nice
yes.
choreographed fight
The
scene. You know what I
choreograph,
mean?
yeah, and you got like all three layers of the dynamics where you had the movement across the actual scene, the actual blocking. You had the movement in the combat of Gurney pushing Paul until Paul inverts the fight and
Right.
twists it. And you also had the emotional movement of, even though Paul twists it, he still lost the emotional battle, and that he's failing to grasp why Gurney is pushing him, saying like, no, you don't understand, like we are in a life or death situation and you need to be ready because you're going to have a knife at your back any second now.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the you did mention it. You're right. Words. Um, like their play across the screen. You know what I mean? Across
Yeah,
the
yeah,
particular um area that they were fighting at. That's important as well in comics. You know what I mean?
yes,
Otherwise, otherwise it looks like they're basically Rock'em Sock'em robots,
Yes.
and they just get standing one place and like, and you definitely want to show movement
Yeah.
across whatever
Yeah.
backdrop that they're fighting in.
Yeah. You mentioned that makes me chuckle because it's kind of rumors been floating around, but I want to believe that there's some level of truth to it. But Donny Katz did the one of his recent contributions to big comic canon was the Keenan Black saga for Marvel, and where Null, God of the Void, comes to Earth and essentially wrecks shop, and you find out that he's actually corrupted several Celestials. And so showing a Celestial fight is going to be like, I mean, we see Celestials do things in comics, but they do it in a way that still their power is such that it's one shot and done. Really, like Aeroshem will eye beam someone and the planet's gone. But there's a moment where Tony may or may not, future spoilers, I guess past spoilers, may or may not hijack another Celestial. And I imagine, and the theory is that you may have actually seen watching Celestials essentially have an actual brawl between two Celestial things, but the artist is like, absolutely not. This would take too long. We're not going to meet deadlines. So there's a line in so there's a line in there where Tony says like, well, you guys ever play Rock'em Sock'em Robots? And so there's like, when it cuts to them, it's just them uppercutting each other. So I like to imagine that was Donnie giving the artist the out. Like, okay, we're just gonna cut to a few punches and but having the background.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's another point. Have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have fun with the fight scene.
Absolutely.
And doesn't matter what style you're using, have fun with it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the whole reason why John Wick blew up as much as it did, and why everyone, like I said earlier, everyone buys comics because comics are cool. We all agree that it's cool. And when John Wick, it's if you're to watch people actually do it in real life, it'd be the most terrifying experience of your life. But in a movie, it's fun. It's cool. You're watching like these really insane choreography. You're watching with witty banter interplayed and stuff. It's very much you have as much fun with it because it is maybe too deep in the writing metaphysical juju, but you make things as unrealistic as possible because happen in real life. You're like, all right, that's the end of the rules. What am I going to do? Right. Space God had just showed up and covered the Earth in symbiote goo. All right, call my mom, I guess. Yeah. But
I mean, but yeah, you like everyone likes. I mean, everyone likes action. I don't care who you are. I mean, you may want to read the comic book that's all about, you know what I mean, like your feelings and stuff. And I'm not going to knock those because there are some that are pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like to read through them, like, oh, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Like that may give you food for thought. But like ideally, almost everybody wants to see somebody get punched.
Yeah.
And that was basically the 90s, 90s and early 2000s. Everyone had long hair and
everyone's name was Blood or Death or Blood Death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people were getting punched and cut and hacked and shot. And like, even you had mentioned like, wrestling, you know what I mean? Was it WWE? I think it was before.
WWF and WCW at that time. Yeah.
Even them, like, I don't follow wrestling, so don't quote me on dates and whatnot. But like, even then, friggin' Undertaker went from being like this trench coat, hat wearing, scary looking dude to a motorcycle biker guy.
Yes, yeah, it was like 2002, 2003. Yeah, we have to say an audio word on stream here, but that was when he. But it's the actual name of it. That's when the Undertaker stopped being the Undertaker and became the American Badass.
Yeah,
that was like they quickly changed his name back to the Undertaker, but they kept coming to look for a while. It was
which it was cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I had friends that watched wrestling, and it's like, hey, you want to watch wrestling? No, as I sat down.
Right. Yeah, it's
fine. I'm entertained. I mean, that's the whole point. You're entertained. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's who, but
it's the same deal.
I definitely was entertained watching people slam each other on the friggin' plywood.
Well, there is a big crossover between comics and wrestling fandoms, and that it's the same deal where it's a soap drama with punching.
Yeah.
where like I mean, even like some of the most action comics, like X-Men, are very classical for this. Batman, Superman, they'll have personal emotional drama. Like, will Batman get over his parental issues, or will Alfred teach him a lesson? While he, judo chops several clowns in the sewers.
Right.
Yeah. Will Superman, be able to live up to his own moral standing of himself, or will the nails be put on enough that he'll in some way feel like he's failed and have to have Lois come in like, no, you did what you could. And but all the while, literally doing Superman punches and laser beams. It's the whole idea of like you have like these stories of characters having to grow in some way or learn lessons or develop relationships tied together by some of the most insane stuff, where you're having like chases on the top of moving trains, and people are like shooting at each other or whatever. It's
right.
You have to match these things together, and that's kind of where the magic pudding is.
Or we all just draw Omni Man.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I mean that in the greatest way. Was it Ryan Otley did the artwork for that?
Yeah.
And whatnot? Like I never. I actually watched the animated show, right?
Yes.
Before I went, and then I went back and read some of the books.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah. No, the show accelerated way quicker than the books did, which
Right.
it plays well for the format they're going for. I feel like they made the right choice with that, but it's definitely not expecting that. And then something like when you have family who are into action sequences, like my mother watched all of Game of Thrones, Vikings, very much that bread. I'm like, hey, you should check out Invincible on Amazon. And she's like, got to the end of the first issue, and she's like, what the crap? What did you sign me up for?
Yeah, that was interesting. That was pretty intense quickly.
Yeah.
But like in comparison, I mean, not in comparison, I guess, but like I felt that the book had some pretty good pacing for like some of the fights they did. And they were pretty epic. They were pretty like wow, like destroy all kinds of crap. But like I don't know, I felt the pacing was really nice. Like the way they I had to bring up one of the examples, but like just watching, I don't know, I liked it. Like some of the fight scenes that they had, some of the dynamic settings that they had, and there was I just drew a blank. But like, yeah, I'm just saying that I liked it. I mean, I definitely took some from it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like Ryan Otley likes to draw a lot of like debris everywhere, which is not something I was. I don't want to say I'm not a fan of, but it's just not something that I really thought about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, fight scene, speed lines, but I should probably, I would read it, and I think I read like honestly, I think I read like half the first omnibus, and I was like, there's a lot of like background stuff that's incorporated into what's going on with the fight that I know that for some people, some artists, it's like, oh yeah, that you just naturally do it, but that never really popped in my head.
Yeah.
Because I was like, figures, focus on the figures, not necessarily the background. So focusing on the background was something new for me.
Yeah. I think it's also, I mean, you can get into like, it's going to be a whole other episode, probably, the importance of reading comics as you're creating comics. Because it's going to force you to think about things. Like every time I read something by Lemire or Ellis or Snyder, I'm like, oh, this is something I didn't think about. I should put this into my stories.
Right.
Yeah, it's but specifically with the combat styles and things, you also do get that with where we kind of mentioned at the top, but you have like your classic combat styles that everyone is like in some way had experience with in some form of media, like brawling, swordplay, martial arts, guns, superpowers, which can be wide ranging, but when you're seeing something for like the first time, like a new power idea or like a new use of a weapon that like you're like, oh, this is blowing my mind right now. I mean, there's eventually does get distilled down, and you probably end up like subconsciously regurgitating that into a story later on. Just because that's the way everything our brains actually work in a manner of. I'm going to get deep into the writing degree bubble again, but your brains work in a manner of pastiche where everything that we ingest beforehand, we distill down, and future thoughts are a combination of everything we experienced beforehand. And so we create this idea of all art is in some way a pastiche or a combination of perceived reality beforehand. In a weird metaphor, the Matrix is actually a metaphor on that. The Wachowski is talking about the fact that everything they experience, they create and that we experience from this point on is a combination of everything we experienced in the past. Before I get too far up my own, but you know, and we kind of saw that in comics too, where you know, we had you know, the Golden Age comics, everything's happening, everything's new, but everything is also, you know, kind of you know, not to do any disservice, but you know, it's basic understanding. Spider-Man thrips and punches. Captain America shields and punches. Superman, before he could fly in laser beam, he was impervious, could leap a tall building, and could stop a moving train. That's the catchphrase of the cartoon. But you know, when we get to the Silver Age, when we get characters that have like revisions on those ideas, and the Silver Age is actually kind of an interesting understanding that it's a reboot of a lot of comics beforehand. It's kind of the first major retcon, and that Detective Comics and Marvel both said like, okay, everything is actually in the same universe.
Right.
Yeah. Bronze Age is when things got really distilled down, or not distilled, but mixed together, and you got, okay, we're going to take a little bit of Superman, a little bit of Batman, and a little bit of this fairy tale and create Green Lantern, or we're going to take straight up the story of Robin Hood, but then set them and mixing them with Batman and create Green Arrow. You know, but these combinations done in such a way and with good writing and art still feel fresh and new, even though it is literally a pastiche of things experienced beforehand. I don't know. So combat styles in the 90s, then were even more of that anti-hero stuff, and things got much more brutal. So they just added on different elements to the same things. Where, all right, now it's not just Venom is Spider-Man, but with symbiote guns and a giant tongue and teeth, and also he might be a good guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Who came from another planet and now has a king and all kinds of stuff.
Yes. But but I feel like if you do the art right and the writing right, you can get away with kind of combining most things. I mean, that's what gave birth to Invincible, and that was great.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be like, I know that from between Golden Age to Silver Age, Bronze Age, and then, you know, into the 90s, you know, like, I feel that the Golden Age were like heroes, and mind you, just a quick, it was scarier before the Golden Age because you had EC Comics, and EC Comics were all like horror and suspense and stuff like that. But then we're like, okay, maybe we need to stop scaring the kids. Let's give them happy, you know, positive superheroes. And then, you know, you come into the Silver Age and you're like, positive, happy superheroes with a little bit of history. You know? And then we get to the 90s, we're like, we're just gonna blow everything up. We don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, we're shooting everyone. Batman knows that he's crazy too, and Batman knows that Bruce Wayne is his alter ego, and we're going to just annihilate everybody.
Yes. Yep.
That's I don't know. That's a whole nother thing too, like whole developing and evolution of developed characters.
Yes. As longtime viewers of the show, when Wednesday Man will know, I suffer from what I call trendy English teacher disease, where once I get onto a subject, I'm just like, all right, now in this thesis, I'm going to explain. Yeah.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Like I'm just an artist that understands about that much of what you're saying. When you start doing that, and then I'm just gonna be like, I'll figure that out afterwards. We'll talk about it later.
that's it. Well, I mean, like, I when I watch an artist's work, I'm like, I don't understand how you. It's like I can project my mental imagery into words, but watching you then like reverse engineer that into a better physical image, I'm like, how is your brain doing this calculus?
Because I feel the same way with artists as well. Like
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
like there are like, I love his work, but Eric Larson is an
Mm.
interesting cat when he draws because his hand is up like this,
Huh.
right? So when he's drawing, he's like, and
Wow.
I've seen him do con sketches, and he just slams them out, and they're amazing. But like,
How?
I don't know how he does it.
Yeah. That's insane.
Or people that like draw upside down and then flip it over. I'm like,
Right.
and I think that makes sense because you're using different aspects of your brain for
Yeah.
that, and like you know what I mean. So you see things
Yeah.
differently, but like, not me.
Yeah. I was like, well, we were talking about Critical Role earlier, but they had that show on their channel for a while with Babs Tarr, where they're going through and essentially did like 2 seasons of drawing lessons with Babs Tarr, who is
Yeah.
famous for drawing Batgirl, and she did a bunch of weird stuff with it. But she's like, yeah, I see the big mental image, but when I'm actually drawing it, I'm just thinking of the shape. Like, like, okay, this head is just 3 circles, and I'm just drawing 3 circles at different angles. I'm not actually.
Dan Fraga said almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Dan Fraga, like, he'll sit there and not even lay down pencils, and he'll just take a pen and just draw like the outline of what he's doing, and then he'll fill in with the details, and it's always like right on. He's like,
Yeah.
he read it and I think he read it from a book that talked from this Asian artist that talks about um, focusing on the general shape of what you're
Yeah.
trying to do. Don't focus on the details because you're going to get hung up on the details and you're like, oh, this arm isn't foreshortened the right way. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not looking right. You see the outer image first and then you work your way in. And
Yeah.
just to watch him do that is really an interesting thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. But man, we were talking about combat, and then
I know.
yeah, it's great. That's why people like our show, because we're on the subject for like an hour, and then but I mean, it does blow my mind, even more so when thinking about how artists translate, because I mean, obviously, when you're writing, you're essentially directing the film in your head and then conveying that into words. But seeing an artist convey that in such a way that is dynamic and powerful, and also has that same level of impact, or no, because we were talking about how a writer may not see the actual think about the visual aspect of the panel, what's actually going to be on the panel, but even trying to think about as much as possible. Back to the Christmas special, because that is something that people should go by right now.
I'm not above plugging that every chance we can get.
Yep. Working with Quentin, there is during the standoff at the end, there is a couple of details that are entirely his idea, because this is what's going to make it visually much more impactful.
Right.
He's like, I know exactly what you're going for, but this is how it's going to be something that when readers read, see the panel, they're going to go, oh crap. And that was definitely something that's that blows my mind as the writer, seeing, or not even, I can't even see, but just working with people who can do that mental thinking before even drawing it out, where when they're just thinking about reading the script and then they're doing the reverse reconstruction of converting the words to the panels in their head, this is how it's going to look.
So how, I know we're probably getting close on time, but how do you feel as a writer, when an artist is like, hey, I know what you wrote here, but if I do it this way, you know what I mean, it's going to create something a little different and whatnot. Like, how are you responsive to that? Like, is that something that you're completely okay with, or do you feel like, oh, you're throwing my script off?
I absolutely love it. There are only one or two times where I've had to turn down a change, and that's because um I knew exactly what was happening later on, and it needed that detail to remain that way. It's like
Gotcha.
a system up. So, and that I think that may also just come down to like a bit of missync between the writer and artist, which can happen, and it's normal. It's not often you find like an artist who is essentially like your brain twin, but
Right.
working with AG Cassette is actually kind of my brain twin for the main run of Wolf Hunter. But there was one thing where he's like, "Hey, so I was thinking about putting, a telltale scar in this area." I'm like, well, it's not going to work exactly what happens because it doesn't work with the metaphor of Willard. And well, it's not really a spoiler; it's in the preview pages, but Willard is a disabled hero, and that he lost his leg in a dogfight. A round from I think it was it wasn't a junker. I think it was a Messerschmitt. Comes through the canopy and just tears his knee apart and disconnects
Wait,
it.
just for clarification, you mentioned aerial dogfight.
Yeah, an aerial dogfight. Yes, no. The NFL is not involved. But yeah, no, an aerial dogfight. A round goes to the canopy, and these are big aircraft rounds, and it just disconnects his leg essentially at the knee. And there's no way to really recover it. And instead of being sent out with a prosthetic leg, they're like, his commander then recommends him for intelligence service because, like I mentioned earlier, he's innately good at forensic psychology. Before that's really a thing. But he wanted to do a telltale scar somewhere else. I'm like, well, that's the metaphor is that he is this disabled veteran and he has this, and the telltale scar is the fact that he has a wooden leg, and it comes up with parts. But the moments where he learns that he can be a hero despite that, it's the moments where we see him, where we still see the prospect involved, but there's no other real telltale about it. The fact that he is, we're not removing the disability. We're just saying that he's worked despite the disability. That it doesn't make him any less of a hero than he already is.
I think he's grown through it.
Yeah. And so that was kind of like the I wanted to keep the metaphor intact there, that it was the disability is still there and you can't really get rid of it, but the image of Willard as a hero before and after, it's you can't, it's the same hero essentially. Yeah. But if it's something like, saying like, hey, this will make this page flow better, or this will sell the action. I with the new book, I got that a couple times where I'm working with an artist, and he's saying, and he comes up with these ideas of, this is what, if we're making this character look powerful on a cosmic scale, this is what I like, and this is what I think would look the best. And every time I'm like, one of the characters who gets featured in the first episode, he did the sketch on that, and it is a figure from mythology that most people should be recognized with. But now when I think of that person, like, this is the definitive, like, I immediately picture the image of this that my artist has done. Like, this is the definitive look of this person from mythology now.
Okay.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, do you have any final thoughts on combat styles, how they look, how they work in writing, anything like that?
Like I said, I mean, if you're writing a book, or if you're doing the artwork for a writer, definitely communicate, because I think that's definitely, like, first and foremost, that's gonna create, you know what I mean, that's going to create interest between the two of you for that particular scene or the entire book in general, and things become a lot more fun when, you know what I mean, when you're bouncing ideas off someone,
Yeah.
and especially the person that you're working on said book with. And just a side note, I'm not a manga fan, but mangas are really good about showing, like,
Oh yeah.
dynamic movement.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I read, I think, the first book for Maximum Ride.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
showing them fly through the air, or the hunters chasing after them and whatnot. Like there's a lot of movement going on in there, um and I probably wouldn't have even read it had like my daughter not read some books, and because she reads some manga, and I was like, okay, let me check this out. And so I was like, you know what? There's a lot you can take from that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Definitely like enjoy your influences from even stuff that you're like I said, I'm not a fan of them. You know what I mean? But I can definitely look at some manga books and like take influences from like, hey, that's really neat the way they did that and incorporate that into my own work. So don't just stick to one comic style that you're reading and
Oh yeah.
whatnot. Definitely like expand your knowledge base, even
Yeah.
if it's not something that's your interest.
Yeah. Yeah, if you only read capes, read some indies with some like non-traditional heroes or non-traditional action involved, or if you only read action stuff, then read some random slice of life stuff or some like sports comics. Just kind of realize that there's like little things you can pull from just about everything.
Right.
Uh,
Oh, and read Silverline books.
Read Silverline books, all of them. My final thought is make everything dynamic. Everything is dynamics in some way. Yeah. It's all about movement in some way or another. So just make sure that your pages, your panels, your pages, your actions all have movement in them.
That's right. Everything.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we have been that Silverline crew. You can follow us at the social media tags below. We're mostly on Instagram. I am also on Twitter, where you can see me mostly razz on other comic creators, or even just get super excited for other people's stuff. And you can follow all of Silverline at the following social media tags as well. We do have shows on Wednesday and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so they'll be back tomorrow with that. We do have an upcoming that's an old one. We did have a comic convention appearance last weekend. I'm still debating if I'm going to be at Emerald City. I might be in Emerald City for a day or two. But in which case, if I am, then you're also there, come say hi. I might throw some Silverline comics out of my trunk at you.
Nice.
Yep.
While speeding through.
Yes. That's the oh man. Also, an image that brings to mind completely unrelated. So weird combat styles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Turtlemobile, had the pizza launcher on top. Like, were they like? Was that like frozen Tombstone pizzas, just like taking people's heads?
I mean, but think about it. It's like you just got hit by a pizza.
Yeah.
Like, how do you can't live with that? Like,
you don't emotionally recover.
Like, why do you have a black eye? I got hit by a flying pizza.
Yep. Yeah,
you not live that down.
No, one of my professors in college was talking about like either it's like scalding hot, freshly baked pizza, so like it just like it burns as it hits you, or it's like like ice cold, like it just starts taking people's heads off.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
The scalding one hits you, you come out looking like Toxic Avenger.
Exactly. Oh man, that's a callback. All right. Well, you've been we've been your Tuesday people. We'll see you next week. Until then, make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline.